Hey Wappers, Siam here. Thought I'd make a really quick video about a bunch of two business models that will work really well in 2021 and onwards, because we have been ravaged in 2020 with all sorts of business models which are now just simply defunct. Tourism, travel, industries that will never recover, high street shops, things like that. They're all screwed. I have a group of businesses, so I've got 9 limited companies at the moment, and it's a mixed bag. We have a whole bunch of businesses that are lying face down in the water and a whole bunch of businesses that are doing really well. So I've taken most of the year in reflecting on, how I could have insulated myself and also what I'm going to do moving forward. And really, it comes down to 2 business models, which I think if you're getting into business for the first time, you should give yourself as much momentum or chance as possible to do well. What I see a lot of the time are people trying to be a salmon. They're trying to swim upstream, and there's so much water pushing them back. So really, if you're getting to business for the very first time, you need everything positive behind you. Okay, so go with the flow. Don't be a salmon. Without further ado, let's have a look at them. Okie dokie, righty tighty. These are basically it, okay? Subscription-based businesses and info product businesses, or information or skill-based businesses. Now I know it seems pretty old hat, and to be honest, from I guess 2017 to 2020, I actually thought subscription-based businesses and info product type businesses were actually waning. They were dying. They did really well from sort of 2010 to 2016, but then they started petering off because everyone is doing them. But however, now we're living in a new world. There's actually it's been completely reinvigorated, if that makes sense. And I guess the 3 main benefits of this is that it's recurring revenue if you do it right. In fact, and you can also have chunky lump sum revenue if you wish. It's lockdown proof, and it's also scalable online. And because we are now moving into a new world where we are going to see literally tens of millions of people in the UK reskilling, because everyone's losing their jobs, loads of business owners are getting screwed over, people will be reskilling. So if you're looking for a side hustle, I would start off by doing one of these. I mean, hell, November 2019 through to now, as I'm making this video, it's the 11th of December 2020. My wife and I set up a brand new side hustle. And you'll probably see this in the WAP. It's basically the WAP experiment, where I'm using my own WAP processes, so the iPac-Man method, which we'll learn in later videos, in a completely different industry. So we've set up a children's subscription service where every 2 weeks a child, or normally a daughter between the age of 4 and 10, will receive a letter and some activities and colouring cards and gifts every 2 weeks in the post, and she can write back, etc. And so in 13 months we've been doing that now. We've just breached the £4,000 profit per month level. So it does work, and we just have set things that we do. And I've got a whole bunch of other businesses which I literally it's a cookie cutter approach. So you may as well copy it. So let's have a look how it would work. So there's a few different things you can do. Okay, so first of all, let's keep this over here actually, so we can have a look. So for all intents and purposes, an info-based business is actually a subscription-based business. So when you're looking at, say, a subscription business, I guess it falls into two parts. You could have a physical product, let's just call it product, and you can have an online thing. Okay, now Ideally, if it's online based, your profit margins are going to be way better. But let's take My Fairy Pen Pal. What we're doing is we're sending actual letters, like actual physical stuff in the post, a box full of gifts, blah blah blah. So there's the whole stock issue, which isn't ideal because we've got two big old rooms full to the ceiling of boxes and stock for this, which isn't, it's not ideal. But also, if you're doing a product-based thing, it's worth doing a product where you don't have to create a new habit for. So, for example, getting a pen pal, getting a parent to decide, does my daughter or son want a fairy pen pal? It's a brand new habit that you're trying to sell. So you've got two things. One, you're trying to sell this new habit of a pen pal thing, and then two, are they going to use you? I mean, it's quite hard. Whereas if you're doing something like a habit or an existing spend, basically, so cleaning your teeth. In fact, we have a Whapper that's doing very well on that. So we all clean our teeth. The Pearly White Club is actually a good example of this. I couldn't remember the website, but I've just Googled it, Pearly White Club. Here we go. Jenny is the founder of this, and basically it's the subscription service for bamboo or eco-friendly toothbrushes, and every fortnight not fortnight, every month or every other month you get a new toothbrush. So yeah, it's a lovely looking website. But yeah, she's got hundreds and hundreds of customers now because it's an existing spend. People already buy toothbrushes. Now, some people don't replace their toothbrush every year or whatever, so she's trying to get a sort of a I guess one thing which I can see here, which will already be a bit of a stumbling point, is bi-monthly, getting a new toothbrush every 2 months. I think really it needs to be probably every quarter or every 6 months. I've spoken to a lot of people about this in the past, and not everyone buys a new toothbrush that often. So, but anyway, besides the point. So think of an existing spend. So that may help. So let's just do existing spend. Now, in terms of online, this is, I guess, where it falls into the sort of the info product thing. So if you are someone with a certain set of skills or knowledge, you could do really, really well. I mean, hell, for example, the WAP itself is an info-based product because I have done all sorts of stuff in business over the last 10 years, and I'm effectively sharing my learning points and hindsight with you. Or you could be like my friend, Tim Davies. So he's a good example. So he's actually just started his entrepreneurial journey. So if we just type in Tim Davies, I think he's going to be Patreon. Yeah. So this is him. So he's basically one of the best Royal Air Force fighter pilot instructors out there. He's left the mob now, but he's had decades of flying fast jets, etc. So what he's doing now, although he's only just got started, okay, so he doesn't have a proper landing page just yet, but what he's doing is he's teaching people, I guess, military style training, but for peanuts. So you can go on his, obviously you get the flight simulator called DCS, and for £37 a month you'll learn all sorts of stuff which civvies don't actually get to experience. So I've actually just become a student of his, and it's just, it's rather fascinating. So that's an example. He's basically leveraging his knowledge and his previous experience, and he's trying to get that out there. And so obviously in terms of stock, there's no stock, and it's it's something which you can scale very, very easily. Now, in terms of populating, getting new people to your I guess your ecosystem or your new business, it's been around for decades now, but it's so simple when you think about it. So first of all, you need to create some sort of offer. So like an irresistible offer. Now, I would say it needs to be between free to, I don't know, like 10 quid. Okay, it has to be really cheap, ideally free, and it needs to be so tempting that you don't really need to sell it. So people go, oh wow, that's a pretty good offer. Yeah, it's a no-brainer, let's do it. Whereas if you're charging 10 quid or 20 quid or whatever, people then have to double think this. They're like, I don't know, is it worth it? Whereas if it's free, it just gets rid of that barrier to entry. Now, once you have that, and you're going to have to tweak with it, and I mean, you can tweak it and test it organically by, just posting it on Facebook or whatever. So what you're going to do is you're going to drive adverts, or you're going to drive traffic to this in forms of Facebook adverts or whatnot. And then you're going to populate this offer. So it could be, a free trial in your Facebook group, and you're going to help people to learn blah, okay? And then after this trial, it could be a 1-month trial, 2-month trial, whatever. You can then have your main sort of subscription, okay? Or it could be a product, whatever. But let's just say it's a subscription. And I don't know, let's say this subscription is, 100 quid a month, okay? So business is just a numbers game. So if you were to put, say, 100 people up here, but into your free, through traffic or whatever, you got 100 people into this group or this trial or boot camp, whatever, subscription, yeah. There is always going to be a natural conversion rate, okay? And this is the thing. What is it going to be? Well, law of numbers, even if your product is totally shit, you're going to have, at least a 1% conversion rate. So in this case, you can have one down here. And so this is where you can then start working on some numbers. So, if you have one down here, you've got, in fact, I wouldn't do subscription, I would do a payment plan. So it would be, they're buying a year up front. So 100 quid a month times 12. So all of a sudden you can sort of hang your hat on numbers. So here, this has just made you £1,200 over the space of a year. This, let's say it's free, so it's made you nothing. So what this now means is that you can work backwards. So what is your cost per acquisition, or your break even? So your break even cost, or I'll just type CPA. So CPA, cost per acquisition, is £1,200. Okay, so you can now afford to spend £1,200 to get a new customer. But even better is that you can now see your break-even cost per lead. Now remember, how many leads did we get? We got 100. So so if you're going to make £1,200 from 100 leads, it's basically 1,200 divide that by 100. I can do this in my head, I promise. So it's 12. So what this means is that your break-even CPL is £12. And then it's a case of, can you populate people into this freebie, this offer, for less than 12 quid? Well, if you can, whoop-de-doo. And that's even with the world's worst conversion rate. Now, I've got very similar, client attraction journeys where this conversion rate or there's one business that's 49%, another business is 21%. So all of a sudden, you're doing these numbers and you're thinking, wow, even with the world's worst conversion rate, this business still actually looks all right, because you can drive people, attract people for 12 quid or less. Yeah, great. So, and then obviously you can tweak other numbers like how much it costs. But let's just be realistic. Let's say you're putting your heart and soul into this group and you're really trying to help people, and you had a better conversion rate. Let's just say it's still pretty shit, because I don't know, there's going to be lots of tire kickers with anything for free, but let's say it's 5%. Well, all of a sudden you've now got 5 people down here, and so I'll just get my calculator on my head. I've still got this calculator from school, I love it. So now all of a sudden you got £6,000 worth of revenue coming in over here. So what's your cost per acquisition, or your break-even cost per acquisition? Well, £6,000, divide that by 5. Well, it's still 1,200 quid, isn't it? But what is the break-even cost per lead? So you basically, if you're making £6,000, divide that by 100. All of a sudden, it's 60 quid. So can you afford to spend £60 or can you get people in this group or this freebie cheaper than 60 quid? Well, yeah, you can. And so, again, this is where, I'm sorry if I'm losing you with the numbers, but if you're going to get into business, you have to understand metrics, basic metrics. So you can do it moving forwards. So let's say you do a few little trials, and after a few months, you know that your conversion rate is, say, 5%, and this is your price point, let's say. You can now start to forecast and actually control your growth. So every time I've scaled a business or tried to grow in a business, I've hit it pretty accurately, as in I'm hitting a certain profit level by this target. And all I've done is this. So for example, let's say the target is I would like a business that's doing $5,000 a month profit. Okay. Or no, let's just keep it simple for now. $10,000 a month revenue. Okay. So it's going to be a nice chunk of profit there. So you simply work it out. Well, if you're making, so 10 grand a month revenue, so 10 grand, divide that by 100 quid per month. That means you need 100 people down here. Okay. You need 100 members. Okay. So with the 5% conversion rate, I'll get the calculator for this. All you do is do 100, divide that by 0.05. It means you need 2,000 up here. Cool. And so what is your CPL? So for something free like this, it's going to be absolute worst case scenario. It's going to be like 15 quid. Okay. In fact, let's make it even worse. Let's say it's 20 quid. So it's costing you £20 in ads to get one new freebie. It's not going to be that bad. So what this means is, in order to get 2,000 customers, it's 2,000 times 20. So you need 40 grand worth of ad spend. Okay. So you need to basically put 40 grand of ad spend. That will then chuck out 2,000 leads. And out of those 2,000 leads, you're going to get 100 customers. And that will then be your 10 grand per month in revenue. And let's say, I don't know, you're giving them gifts, and I don't know, your profit margin is 50%. So that means you're going to make 5 grand a month. Okay? Which is 60 grand a year. Now you're probably thinking, I don't have 40 grand. Well, this is where you go and borrow. Every successful business on the planet has borrowed money at some point. And look at the ROI here. So that's like 150% ROI in your first year. But don't forget, you're going to have members that will stay on for not just 1 year, but several years. So actually the ROI is just, it is silly. Okay, it's Siam from the future here. What happened is I showed this video to a couple of friends, and they all said the same thing. They're like, whoa, Siam, that's absolutely reckless. How you can't just go and recommend people go and borrow 40 grand on a new startup business. But the thing is, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, so I actually had an interview recently with on a podcast, and I actually covered this here. So you don't just go and borrow money crazily. You do a resilience testing on your campaign. So this is what I mean. And when you look at all the big boys, so if you look at every unicorn that's happened over the last few years, or hell, over the last decade or so, Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, I mean, that was 20 odd years ago. But all the big boys, what they do is they massively go underwater for the best part of 10 years. And all they're doing is they're like Netflix, prime example. Netflix, I think, when they first got going, their CPA was 3 years. I always have this in the back of my head, because they're like, right, we need to take out Blockbuster. We need to take out, change people's habits, etc. How are we going to do that? Then no one's going to pay 10 quid a month to have some sort of streaming service, because no one did it. So they were forced to basically drown out the market with their ad spend and destroy everyone else in the process. So they are happily spending 3 years worth of income, a client's revenue. Like, what is that? So let's work it out. So I think, what is it, 8 quid a month? Or so, back then I think it was $9.99. So call it 10 times 12, so that's 120. So 120 times 3, shit. So they're spending roughly $360 to get a $9 a month customer. So they're 3 years. But and this is where numbers make it so simple and clinical, because you just go, right, well, how many customers do we need? Well, we need at least, to get this going, I don't know, 5 million customers. Okay, well, 5 million customers times 3 years equals, 100 million or X million ad spend. Sweet, let's go and borrow it. What are interest rates these days? Cheap as shit. Okay, let's go and borrow money at 2% and let's go and hoover up all our clients. What's the debt servicing on that? Bugger all. Sweet. Okay, well, and then before you know it, you've hoovered up all of your clients. And then once you've got your critical mass where you know that the monthly revenue from that critical mass will support, your office, your OPEX, etc. Well, then you stop, you stop borrowing. You can literally just turn the ads off, and all of a sudden you're profitable overnight. So,
and that's where those overnight successes come from.
Exactly. 10 years of hard graft.
Yeah. Well.
And it's really interesting, because if you're in a business right now or thinking of starting a business right now, and you don't have, you only are on a one-to-one, you're missing a massive amount of opportunity for yourself. You need to be thinking, right, how can I keep touching back with this client? How can I get this customer, whoever they are, to keep coming back to me, keep buying, even if it's a small thing, or is there a luxury item, anything like that, that adds to a portfolio of products that they want to keep coming back and reinforcing.
Yeah. And I think with the scaling issue, a lot of people are too scared to borrow. Like, this is crucial. I think one of the key things to my, that sounds so cheesy, but the key things to my success. I'm not there. I haven't hit my goals yet, by the way. It's an ongoing process. But the thing that I guess leapfrogged me from typical small business owner to slightly better than a small business owner is borrowing. Like, all I've ever done, and it sounds so simple, all I've ever done was done those simple client attraction journeys, done the maths, gone, okay, that looks good with a really shit conversion rate. Let's have a little test. And a little test would be like a $2,000 ad spend, spending 50 quid a day, just seeing them, looking at all the metrics, getting the numbers in and going, sweet, on this $2,000 ad spend, the numbers are actually, instead of a 1% conversion rate, it's like a 5% conversion rate. Sweet. Okay, well, let's just crank this up a little bit. And now I'm going to put $5,000 in, and then $10,000. And then typically for a long time, it's always been like, shit, I've, haven't been able to spend more than $5,000 or $10,000 in an ad campaign. This was back in the early days. So I go, well, but now you have a story, and the story is so crucial here. So, especially when you go to raise money. So you can then go, hey, I had an idea, wasn't sure if it worked. This product was amazing. So I took my own money, I put my money where my mouth is, and I gave it a go. I risked $2,000. And guess what? Phase 1 worked. That $2,000 ad campaign spat out, $4,000 or whatever. So I thought, okay, well, this seems to be good. I wasn't sure if it was going to break under scale or growth. So I put $5,000 in. So phase 2, $5,000, and it came back still profitable. Sweet. At this point, I then begged, borrowed, and stealed from my friends and family. I managed to get a $10,000 loan from my dad or whatever, paying 15% APR or whatever. So phase 3 is I'm going to put $10,000 into this campaign and see if it works. And guess what? It did. In fact, the conversion rates are better. Because I'm spending a bit more, I've got economies of scale. Bulk buying. Blah blah blah. So once you've done 3 iterations of this campaign, you're pretty confident on your stats and if it's going to break under scale, because some campaigns break the moment you put too much money in it. Then you go and borrow money. Now, whether you do that in terms of equity, giving away, I would highly recommend that you don't straight away. You really shouldn't be giving away equity until you're doing something like at least $20,000 a month profit. Because if you're giving away equity now, you're going to be giving away half a leg. Like, you're going to be giving away like 40%, 30% to someone because you've got a business making jack shit. However, when you're making like $20,000 a month profit, to get the money that you need, you'd only need to give away 10% or something like that. So you need to borrow, i.e. debt-based money. So go to a bank. Now, banks don't lend, so you'll then have to find a private investor or whatever. But so yeah, so that's, I guess, one way of looking at it. Another way of doing it is if you have like a really high-valued skill or niche. There's another way that you can go about it, where you effectively you're again, you're putting eyeballs out there, or adverts basically, and you're doing some sort of Zoom call, okay? But your product, this is really good for high ticket stuff. So if you have a high ticket product, this works an absolute treat. And let's say your high ticket product is $5,000, okay? Well, again, there's going to be a natural conversion rate. Now, what happens is you will, in between here, this is where you're going to have actually a bit of a filter. So you could have some sort of, let's say, a filter video. So you're going to get loads of people watching this filter video, and in that video you're saying, look, if you are this person that wants this, that, you know, blah blah blah, here's the criteria, definitely book a, you know, a 1 hour Zoom call with me and I can help. If you are this, this and this, don't do this. So what you're going to do is you're going to filter all the tire kickers or people that you don't want to speak with, and because it'll be you are the owner operator or the person in demand, I promise you, your conversion rate will be something relatively high, like 10 to 25%. And I've got several businesses where we have this sort of model, and the Zoom calls with our sort of business development managers or salespeople, I guess, and they're hitting between 10 to 25. But if it's you personally, it could be as high as 50%. But let's just say it's, I don't know, for shits and giggles, let's just say it's 20%. Well, what this means is, you know, if you want to, you know, get 2 of these a month, or, you know, 2 of these, and let's say it's basically 1 in 5, so you just need 10 one-to-one phone calls. So all of a sudden, let's do the math. So you've got 10 grand every month coming in over here from these 2 sales, so to speak. What's your cost per lead? Well, your cost per lead, 10 grand. Well, actually, it depends how much it costs you to get one of these, but let's look at your break-even cost per lead to give you a nice warm fuzzy feeling. So 10 grand, divide that by 10, so all of a sudden your cost per lead is £1,000. So then you need to ask yourself, can I get people to do a 1 hour phone call, you know, Zoom call after being filtered for less than £1,000? Yeah, really easily. And what you'll find with a I guess a client attraction journey like this, a realistic expectation is between £100 and £200. Okay, so let's say it's 200 quid, worst case scenario. Well, it's going to cost you 2 grand in ad spend to then chuck out 10 grand. It's really as simple as that. You don't need to do things complicated. Now, if this video is absolutely like petrifying you, going, oh my god, I know nothing about numbers, I know nothing about business, don't even have a business idea, don't worry, okay? All I wanted to do is be realistic with you and show you something which it still works, and it's actually working extremely well these days with a bunch of my other businesses. So yeah, and now in terms of the idea, they're like, yeah, but Simon, I still don't have an idea, okay? Well, the thing is that you will stumble across an idea. So when you get your head around, I guess, these metrics, and you can work out using really pessimistic stats, if it still looks good using pessimistic stats, then you'll look for something, going, well, okay, well, what could I do to charge 5 grand a year, or 5 grand one off, or, you know, what is 5 grand, divide that by 12, what is that, 416 quid a month. What can I do to do that? And I'll give you a real example here. So I have another business called The Realistic Trader, and I guess our main client attraction journey is our free trading test drive, TTD. Okay, totally free. It's 2 months, and if people want to become a full-time RT member at the end of that, it's £4,800 per year. This is a new campaign at the moment, actually. So if we look at the business ads manager, so I'll show you one example. We've got a bit more. I've turned this one off for the moment. But yeah, look at this. So cost per result. So it's costing me £12 and 6p to get a new free trading test drive person. And so what we did, this is a relatively new campaign, is we've driven about 400 people into this free trading test drive in a 2-week period, and it's cost me, it's ranged between 12 to 15 pounds, so let's just call it 15 quid. So worst case scenario, I just need, so 15 times 400, it's cost me 6 grand in ad spend, okay, to generate 400 new prospects, so to speak. Now the conversion rate I don't actually know, because it's still new with this new campaign. But even, let's say, because I know it's very expensive and so a lot of people won't do it, but let's just say it's 1%. Real pessimistic figures. So this is the reason why I did this, because I was using pessimistic figures. Well, 1% of 400 is still 4. So 4 times 4,800, 4 times 4,800 is still 19,200 in revenue. So let's just get rid of the VAT on that. That's 16 grand. And I don't know, and there's all sorts of costs, but I mean, realistically speaking, even if in fact, I don't want to bore you, but it's still, what is that, 6 grand in ad spend, still generating 16 grand in revenue with a 1% conversion rate. At 2% conversion rate, that's doubled. And so forth. And so when I did the math, I was like, well, it's a no-brainer. Got to go and do it. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. When you, and as I said, when you get your head around this, you will stumble across an idea, because you'll say to yourself, hey, what can I do for a high ticket product, or what can I do for, I mean, even not it could just be a cheap product. You know, what can I have for what can I do for £30 per month, or 300 quid a year, which is exactly what the WAP is. So yeah, let that just stay in your mind for now. And in the WAP, we do go through all of this in way more detail, just in case it sounds really scary. But anyway, toodles. See you in the next video.